Everybody, wait a minute.
They say when you wear Black Power Media gear, you can accomplish anything. You can play any and every position. Coaching, to kicking, to receiving, to running and juking. And, oh my goodness, I see that again in slow motion. Get off me. And you're going to have a lot of haters coming at you, but what you got to do is you got to shake them off, and get to your goal and accomplish it. And when that's done, it's a beautiful thing. I'm talking about going hard, extra, for that extra point. And when it's done beautifully, you talking about touchdown. Oh, and the crowd goes wild and they're celebrating with you and everything. Man, let's see that again. Nice.
Black Power Media, baby. That's how we do it.
Now go to blackpowermedia.org and get you some of that gear. Empower yourself today. Yeah.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. What's up, world? Welcome to another pop-up edition of I Mix What I Like live right here at Black Power Media. Again, I'm Jared Ball, very happy to be your host. And this time I'm ready for it. So let me, before I forget and mess it up, big shout out to Radical for putting me on to the story that I wanted to jump on and talk about because it came right as, again, I'm continuing working on the second edition, and I'm gonna have to make some adjustments to the Cryptoganda chapter after this joint. And as I said in the show description, where the links to everything I'm going to be talking about today are already there. It's another. I told you, we covered because and that's why I'm gonna bring up one of the stories that is going to be a repeat for some of you who remember. And you know, anyway, so yeah, peace again, Big Teal. Let's go. Troublemaker in the building. What's up, Leah? What's up, Reddy? What's up, Ricky? Okay, so here we go. This is the story from Mint Press. Shout out to Mint Press. Shadowy U.S. spy firm promises to surveil crypto users for the highest bidder. I mean, unbelievable. Leaked files reviewed by Mint Press expose how intelligence services the world over can track cryptocurrency transactions to their source and therefore identify users by monitoring the movements of smartphone and Internet of Thing IoT devices such as Amazon's Echo. The contents comprehensively detonate the myth of crypto anonymity. Can I, you know what? My bad. Yeah. The contents comprehensively detonate the myth of crypto anonymity and have grave implications for individuals and states seeking to shield their financial activity from the prying eye of hostile governments and authorities. I like that line too. The contents comprehensively detonate. That is, the contents of the leaked files comprehensively detonate the myth of crypto anonymity. Because remember, that was just one of the pillars. The crash of FTX already gets rid of another of the pillars in terms of this whole thing being decentralized and free of banking intervention and government intervention and so on and so forth. So in addition to crypto not solving issues of capitalism, wealth definition, extraction, exploitation of labor, and redistribution, it also does not provide a safe communicative space, as I put in my note there. All right. The documents are among a trove related to the secret operations of Anomaly 6, a shadowy private spying firm founded by a pair of U.S. military intelligence veterans. I love it. The company covertly embeds software development kits, or SDKs, in hundreds of popular apps, then slices through layers of anonymized data in order to uncover sensitive information about any individual it chooses anywhere on Earth at any time. In all, Anomaly 6 can simultaneously monitor roughly 3 billion smartphone devices, equivalent to a fifth of the world's total population, in real time. Having previously hawked its wares to U.S. Special Operations Command, as this journalist revealed on December 6th, and I looked at it, you can click the link and check it on your own. They got about a $500,000 contract from the federal government. Anomaly 6 is now using British private military company Prevail Partners, heavily involved in the West's proxy war in Ukraine, to market and sell its product to a variety of Western military security and intelligence agencies the world over. This is despite the company's own founders fearing its global dragnet could be completely illegal under national and international data protection regimes. The company's international surveillance reach could be more sweeping and invasive than even that of the CIA and NSA, Mint Press can reveal. Invasive than even the CIA and NSA. So they're more invasive than CIA and NSA. Mint Press can reveal individuals, organizations, and states seeking to bypass traditional financial structures and systems loom prominently in Anomaly 6's mephitic crosshairs, and spying on their transactions is a pivotal component of its sales pitch to government and private clients. This Orwellian technology leaves cryptocurrency users the world over nowhere to hide. I looked up the word mephitic. I didn't know it, and it more or less means something malodorous, nasty. So who watches the watchers? Ever since Bitcoin's launch in 2009, anonymity has been an absolutely fundamental tenet of cryptocurrency. The ability to make and receive payments incognito through a secure, decentralized platform without needing to register a named bank account or even interact with established financial gatekeepers at any stage was and remains a unique selling point for the asset. The principle of anonymity is taken so seriously by crypto practitioners and aficionados alike that industry platforms are graded according to their levels of privacy. Many crypto entrepreneurs, some of whom manage hundreds of millions of dollars for clients, conduct business without ever disclosing their names or any identifying information at all. Venture capital firms have even invested vast sums in cryptocurrency, in crypto ventures, with wholly pseudonymous founders and unprecedented sectoral development. This is a graphic of their website. And as is pointed out, and as is pointed out in this article, this is all you get at the website. Like this is the extent of the entire website, apparently. Like no nothing, no other content, apparently. Yeah, just double check that there. There we go. No other content, apparently. There we go. That should take care of that. Get that back together there. Because putting in AirPod. Okay, there we go. So anyway, Anomaly 6's website, there it is, features no other data but the company name, contact, and location. That's what I was. In recent years, however, there have been several clear indications that cryptocurrency anonymity is under significant threat, and indeed could already have mortally compromised. It could have been mortally compromised. Could already have been mortally compromised by the U.S. intelligence apparatus. In June 2021, it was revealed that the FBI had successfully traced and recovered $2.3 million in Bitcoin extorted by hackers from Colonial Pipeline in a ransomware attack, which had shut down the company's computer systems, causing fuel shortages and a spike in gas prices. And in a moment, I'm going to remind you of what we had already covered in not quite regarding that particular story, but how the intelligence community had already found its home. Never mind the whole point that we also covered previously about the rumor or the conspiracy theory or whatever you want to call it, that Satoshi Nakamoto themselves comes out of the NSA. But as I'll show you or remind you, there's and it's linked in the show description for you to review at your leisure, the statement from our good friends at the CIA. Anyway, U.S. officials declined to reveal how they tracked where the ill-gotten funds had ended up and identified the ultimate owners of 23 separate cryptocurrency accounts belonging to DarkSide, the hacking collective responsible for the cyber attack. Although public statements by CIA Director William Burns in December that year may provide a clue. Speaking at a Wall Street Journal summit, he acknowledged that his agency was engaged in a number of different projects focused on cryptocurrency. So there's part of the clue. This is something I inherited. My predecessor had started this, he said, trying to look at a second and third order consequences, as well as helping with our colleagues in other parts of the U.S. government to provide solid intelligence on what we're seeing as well. While it's certainly true that cryptocurrency's anonymity is attractive to criminal elements and terrorist groups, there are a wide variety of entirely legitimate reasons for seeking privacy in financial transactions and preventing regulators, big banks, and governments from keeping an eye on what one is doing. For example, political and social movements of every stripe in all corners of the globe have embraced the asset, as they can be financially supported from overseas without any paper trail being left at either end. In turn, activists can send money to each other and make purchases in secret and organize events and construct local and international support networks, leaving authorities none the wiser. In Venezuela, cryptocurrency has provided vital respite to an entire country, as crippling U.S.-led sanctions have in recent years deprived both its government and citizens of access to and the ability to buy even basic necessities, including food and medicine. The national currency's value reduced to almost zero, crypto transactions offer a literal lifeline by which goods and services can be accessed and import and export restrictions imposed by Washington circumvented. Although I appreciate that, I have to do more research myself on that at some point, because I would like to see the numbers on the actual impact of those transactions on people. But anyway, Patterns of life in bed down locations. On February 2021, UN Special Rapporteur report on the impact of American sanctions on Venezuela ruled that they were collective punishment, and Caracas lived on just 1% of its pre-sanctions income. That's ridiculous. The previous March, Alfredo de Zayas, formerly an independent expert for the United Nations Human Rights Council, calculated that over 100,000 Venezuelans had died as a result of the restrictions. Despite this monstrous human toll and countless calls from prominent rights groups and international institutions to end the suffering, Washington rigidly enforces the sanctions regime and seeks to harshly punish any individual or organization helping Caracas skirt restrictions. While measures have eased slightly following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the stateside prosecution of Colombian businessman Alex Saab, abducted from Cape Verde in October 2020 for selling food to Venezuelan government, is ongoing. Saab could be joined soon in the dock if Anomaly 6 has anything to do with it. One of the company's leaked sales presentations provides several case studies showing how its spying technology can be used by security and intelligence services to derive understanding of the actions of individuals associated with sanctions violations. By homing in on the location of Venezuelan government-sanctioned cryptocurrency exchange, the National Superintendents of Crypto Actives and Related Activities, SUNACRIP, which manages all crypto activities in the country, Anomaly 6 identified two specific IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, which show the value of the A6 dataset in this endeavor. Scouring data generated at the site back in January 1st, 2020, Anomaly 6 found thousands of signals emitted by IoT devices and smartphones. From there, it built out a pattern of life for the devices in that search. In other words, the location device owners travel to and from when and where they lived. And all these devices produced over 593,374 geographic points of reference in Argentina, Colombia, and Venezuela. From the amorphous corpus, Anomaly 6 identified one device with a unique travel pattern, which makes it worth further investigation. In particular, its movements indicated a very well-defined pattern of life in and around Caracas, although the company professed to be much more interested in its travel to the Colombian border in the Cucuta-San Antonio del Táchira border area. So they were able to track flights, movement patterns, transactions, etc., and so forth. I'm not going to just continue to read this entire article as much as I highlighted here. But the point is that this Anomaly 6 company selling itself to the federal government has promised that it can, and it demonstrated its ability to track all this movement, this data, and the exchange of crypto, allowing it with other surveillance techniques to identify who's doing what. And as it says here, such capabilities would no doubt be of much interest to the CIA and NSA, both of which are in theory prohibited from spying on U.S. citizens, but have been recurrently embroiled in controversy for engaging in such activity. Anomaly 6's services, of course, mean the CIA and NSA can dodge restrictions at home without fear of landing in hot water. Other agencies permitted to monitor Americans can likewise now do so without a warrant too. And there is no reason to believe that its spying would be restricted to financial transactions either. Anomaly 6 data can be used in multiple use cases to support cyber intelligence and operational use end states, the leaked crypto sales deck declares. By utilizing multiple targeting methodologies, this data can support the building of a far superior intelligence picture that enables clients to move towards actionable end states. Fusing A6 data with other classified and unclassified data sets places the client at the forefront of the cyber mission space. The other leaked files talk openly about how its technology is right for counterintelligence and source development, spying, and it's already working with friendly countries, including members of the Five Eyes Global Spying Network, France and Germany. I don't know anything about the Five Eyes Global Spying Network. That sounds really nice. In other words, Anomaly 6 turns every citizen on Earth into a potential person of interest to intelligence agencies, and thus a target for recruitment, surveillance, harassment, and much, much worse. The most intimate of details, their private lives easily accessible by shady actors with a few clicks of a button and without their knowledge or consent. Yeah. So I just wanted to start there and then to come back to what we had discussed. I don't remember exactly when, but this analysis of Bitcoin's use in illicit finance by Michael Morell from last April. And my point again in bringing it up then was to counter the mythology, or to challenge at least the mythology that there is anonymity in blockchain, as is promised and promoted as part of its promotional pitch. And again, not that we want to believe everything the CIA says, with at face value. I think it's interesting, as I said then, that this analysis coming from the CIA argues that, coming from someone with 33-year career in the CIA, that cryptocurrency is great for surveillance. So he talks about, that is, Mr. Morell talks about working with Beacon Global Strategies and how they conducted an analysis regarding the degree of illicit activity associated with cryptocurrencies in general and Bitcoin in particular, because initially, as we already talked about, there was already this discussion of, there was that what is it? The negative branding associated with Bitcoin and it being used for illicit activity only. But as this guy's saying, and was kind of mentioned in the other story, that's not the case. That a lot of folks like those pictured here are involved. Fidelity, BlackRock, which run by Larry Fink, basically has at least $9 trillion, that is 9 trillion, at its disposal for investment globally, and more than 20 trillion in terms of what is passed through their platform for exchange. And they're already involved. So again, my point at the time, and would be now, is that specific to this argument around Black people being able to catch up and close the financial wealth divide by investing in Bitcoin. Well, it's not likely you'll be able to catch up when already BlackRock and Tesla and Square and all these, and Morgan Stanley, et cetera, are already involved in the space. And then, as we've seen already in the last article, Anomaly 6, former intelligence agency created products can be used to get more contract work to conduct surveillance on the blockchain and beyond for intelligence agencies and business and anyone else who can pay the fees. Again, when I looked at the other one, that they had gotten a contract for about $590 million from the federal government. So if you have that kind of money, they'll work for you as well. The point being, the technology doesn't change the social relationships, it intensifies them. So here the tech is being automatically put to use, and as we'll see by the end of this piece here, to those with organized political power for their purposes. So there is no intervening moment or possibility for people who are colonized or oppressed, et cetera, and so forth, to take advantage of some newly developed tech in a way that's going to flip power in and of itself. Anyway, as he writes here, major corporations from Tesla to Square to MicroStrategy are adding it, that is cryptocurrency, to their balance sheets. Large banks are providing Bitcoin-related services, with Morgan Stanley saying it will soon offer access to 3 Bitcoin funds for its wealth management clients. Canada has approved Bitcoin exchange trade funds, ETFs. So again, back in April of last year, they were already, that was my point of bringing it up then, they're already getting involved. Yet there's a common belief that the Bitcoin market is rife with illicit activity, with many holding this belief pointing to several high-profile incidents. And then they talk about, whatever, some thug or gangster or Silk Road or whatever. But as he says here, the broad generalizations about the use of Bitcoin in illicit finance are significantly overstated. And the blockchain ledger on which Bitcoin transactions are recorded is an underutilized forensic tool that can be used more widely by law enforcement and the intelligence community to identify and disrupt illicit activities. Put simply, blockchain analysis is a highly effective crime fighting and intelligence gathering tool. Chain Analysis, the blockchain analytics firm, said that illicit activity among all cryptocurrencies as a percent of total cryptocurrency activity from 2017 to 2020 was less than 1%. Blah, blah, blah. More on that. But specifically for my interests, and again, the link is in the show description so you can read this on your own, and check me if your interpretation is different from mine. And of course, to do that, you would simply
put it in the comments.
Yeah. But anyway, blockchain technology is a powerful but underutilized forensic tool for governments to identify illicit activity and bring criminals to justice. One expert on the cryptocurrency ecosystem called blockchain technology a boon for surveillance. A currently serving official at the CFTC added that it is easier for law enforcement to trace illicit activity using Bitcoin than it is to trace cross-border illegal activity using traditional banking transactions, and far easier than cash transactions. And the CTFC is the body that regulates the Commodity Future Trading Commission, is one of the bodies that would regulate the transactions if they are not, now I'm forgetting what switches them to make them go under the purview of the SEC, which has much more funding and support for oversight. But anyway, just wanted to clarify who CFTC is, even if I can't remember who does what in which at this exact moment. But in any event, here, when it comes to transparency in the international financial system and the domestic financial system, cryptocurrencies provide enhanced opportunities in certain ways for law enforcement agencies to be able to trace transactions. Glazier added that the U.S. government should bring cryptocurrencies into the system and regulate them in the appropriate way. One expert told us that the dance of catching illicit actors is magnitudes greater using blockchain than in the traditional banking sector. Another went so far as to say, if all criminals use blockchain, we could wipe out illicit financial activity. Blockchain technology enables this forensic power because it captures every single transaction for all to see. It provides governments and the public at large with a permanent, unchangeable record of transactions. For example, in September 2020, Chain Analysis was awarded $625,000 grant, a $625,000 grant from the IRS to develop Monero tracking software. Last November, CipherTrace also filed 2 patents for technologies related to tracing Monero transactions after working with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Finally, in December 2020, cryptocurrency forensic software was able to reliably trace stolen Bitcoin that had been passed through several coin mixers. Coin mixers, from what little I've read and seen on them, are just simply digital washing machines, basically, that make it harder to trace where one's money is and whose money is what. Blockchain forensics can be used in multiple ways by law enforcement and intelligence services. First, it can be used as an investigative tool in existing cases. Law enforcement can use the blockchain to uncover the illicit activity of the target of an investigation and identify other potential bad actors linked via the blockchain to that target. Second, by using artificial intelligence algorithms developed from patterns of how illicit actors have how illicit actors behave in the ecosystem, it can identify previously unknown bad actors. To this end, the blockchain allows law enforcement to adopt a much more sophisticated proactive network strategy to identify illicit activity. Now, again, just as a reminder, not that I think we need it, but as a reminder for some, illicit activity in this specific sense is referring to drug dealers and so on and stuff like that. But as I think we should all be aware, it really ultimately means those engaged in political activity that would be seen as the real ultimate threat to those in power, not the illegal drug trading, money laundering, et cetera, and so forth that some are doing. And that they acknowledge in their own data is less than 1% of all the blockchain transactions. So the bulk of blockchain transactions are really people moving coins from one wallet to another of their own wallets, but is also just general Ponzi, theft, capitalist scheming, exploitative ripoff and hustles that we just the run-of-the-mill standard economy or economic behavior. But to the extent as some have mentioned that anyone on the left might actually engage that space, here's the point is that whatever they deem to be illicit activity, whether you're a drug dealer or peddling something like Black nationalism and radical internationalist, Pan-African socialist, communist politics, anyway. So the power of blockchain as a tool for law enforcement and intelligence agencies is as they say here, governments do not fully yet understand that power. However, the expert also noted that awareness of this power is beginning to expand as governments engage with the three major blockchain analytic firms, Chainalysis, CipherTrace, and Elliptic. Beyond the United States, blockchain forensics are being used by government agencies in Europe, Japan, and South Korea. In November 2020, the IRS, following assistance from Chainalysis, was able to retrieve $1 billion of illicit Bitcoin related to the now defunct Silk Road DNM. So they determined that to be illicit and they shut them down. And put old boy in prison forever, apparently. Finally, Bitcoin and its decentralized nature seem to pose a disrupt. Now, this is interesting, and this is where I think some of the argument that is promoted or has been promoted around defending cryptocurrency has been a little bit confused. But as in one paragraph, this person challenges and then ends up making my point, saying here that finally Bitcoin and its decentralized nature seem to pose a disruptive threat to traditional financial institutions. And I know that sounds like bars to its defenders, to the cryptogandists. We're disrupting, we're a real threat. But this is the rest of the paragraph is always the part that they leave out and seem to not want to focus on or are not willing or capable of understanding. That is, the same could have been said for electronic banking and e-signatures 20 years ago. That is, that they could also have been said to have been threats to traditional financial institutions, which he says here stirred up significant debate regarding consumer protection and integrity of the financial system. Again, also, what I said was a problem with the existing blockchain arrangement that they say provides anonymity and protection, but it also but only protection for the seller, not the buyer. And since most of us are consumers and that is what drives the economy, that's who deserves a bulk of the protection and, of course, a bulk of the redistributed wealth created by that exchange. But nobody, they don't ever want to deal with that either. But here we go. However, eventually, traditional financial institutions found ways to successfully incorporate it into their businesses. This is, again, what he's saying. Capitalism adapts. Organized capital adapts. So this idea that individual or small collective collectives of powerless and moneyless are going to pool or individually engage this space, or rather engage the space in pools or individually, and then upset the system, misses the point that he's making here, and that I agreed with from the outset. Again, obviously from a different political trajectory, but under the same point, still remains. And as he continues, and any new technology as innovative as blockchain will represent a risk to the established methods of the finance industry. It will be the government's role to identify how to best use and regulate blockchain technology to advance the national interest. Said differently, organized capital and political power, organized, is what will determine the use of and function of and value of this new technology. Not the technology itself, not individuals or small pools of formerly colonized and oppressed communities, but organized state power, political power. Doesn't have to be state, however you want to define it, but political power, that is the power to define phenomena and have it act in a desired manner. Not Democrat, Republican Party, not mainstream standard electoral politics, but actual political power. That's what the CIA dude is talking about, from the permanent state, the deep state, the unelected power source. 33 years, he said, his experience he had in it. From their perspective, they don't go anywhere. They're not elected and unelected. They're not following poll data and this and that. They're protecting the interests of the state, that is the interests of organized power. That is who will regulate and determine the best use of the technology. And that's not going to be overcome by, again, disorganized individual efforts at investment, et cetera, and so forth. So that was it. Again, shout out to Radical for putting me onto that story. Bigger shout out, I must say, to Mint Press for the work. And I'm late to it in its full scope and its total story. But I just wanted to quickly point that out, pull it together, because again, it's coming right as I'm in my myopic last stages trying to cross the finish line here. So anyway, let me run through. If there are any quick comments or questions, please repost them. And it does help when you all put at Black Power Media in the chat. Otherwise, it looks like you all have a vigorous conversation going. But okay, right on. The CIA article is trash. If we're talking about the one I just went through, I think it's pretty revealing. I mean, it's just interesting, but let's see. Do you know that there will be a need to do a new edition of the MVP every few years? Oh, that's funny. I could see that. And we'll see. I don't know. Honestly, I don't. My biggest problem is having these deadlines. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, obviously, on one hand, yes, I could see it being needed to be updated. But on the other hand, I think with what I'm laying out, certainly by the second edition, what I've laid out is enough for any you or anyone else to fill in the updates as you go, because it's ultimately, the argument isn't just about buying power. It's about all pro-capitalist mythology. And I think the method I'm demonstrating can be applied to any of them. That is, what is the origin? Who is putting the myth together? What is the context? And so on and so forth. So on the one hand, I get it, but on the other, in part because I don't know that I'm going to want to keep doing it. Although it may be the only thing I do in terms of publishing. I don't know. We'll see. But the point is that again, I think maybe my favorite, if not the biggest contribution of the work, is just reminding of or demonstrating a methodology for exposing the nonsense. I mean, it's not. It's and even again, like lately, there's been this barrage of hostility that I've been receiving from anonymous commenters and whatnot. And it's always the same. And there's never any data. There's no like thought out response that says this is what you said and where I think you're wrong and what you did. It's always just some name calling and some whatever. And I get it. I give a little bit so I can take it, except that I show the data behind it. So my point in all that is just to say that in terms of the method I'm demonstrating is that part of it is it shows that the defenders of the myth don't have anything. There's nothing to defend themselves with in terms of facts and actual data. It's just, so yeah, no, and that's sort of my point too. The colonial process requires surveillance and a certain use of media and technology. So again, just from that basis alone, how is the emergence of blockchain going to upset that? I mean, on its face, this stuff has never made much sense. I'm wrong. That's it. That's all I get. That's all I get.
It's wrong, bro.
But but nothing past the meme. There's nothing past the meme. So anyway, that was about it. I'll leave it there. Definitely come on back for the remix tomorrow, and then me and the fellows will be back to talk about emancipation on Friday to wrap up our BPM year. Friday morning. Yikes. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. What is it? Wait. Would using examples of Venezuela and even a bigger extent El Salvador be similar to the way cultural sects are depicted as having political power? Would using examples of Venezuela and even a bigger extent El Salvador be similar to the way cultural sects are depicted as having political power? I'm not sure I follow. That might be me though. I think that the marketing was very similar. That again, even in that piece there in Mint Press, and that's why I'm saying I'm not sure I didn't focus on it and I haven't researched that. But I don't know if I've seen that claim. I'm not that argument, and I think claim was made regarding El Salvador at one point, and I don't think it held up there. That poor people were able to circumvent the sanctions and the hard times economically when their currencies went down. I don't see how that works. So I'd like to really see what that means, because in other words, if you have to use US dollars or even your local currency initially, and then through conversion, end up purchasing Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, how then I'm still not getting how getting crypto circumvents the depressed value of your currency. And I don't see how that, and then are local shops and businesses accepting cryptocurrency? Or like, again, I'm thinking like when I go to Panama, I have to ask, I haven't been on the most recent trip. Who in these local spots is accepting cryptocurrency, and who has crypto to spend there? So I don't get that part. So I'd like to learn more about that, or learn more about that claim. The way the narrative claims that the alternatives for those nations and the way people discuss cultural neighborhoods as having political power ignores the conditions which they're right. Yeah, no question. At some point, I have a note here, and I don't know if this is exactly the same thing, Ricky, but I have a note here as something I would like to get to. Like I've have a note here, like of all the things, including like this discussion, of all the things that won't fully get into the book, but that I'd like to follow up on. Like I had a whole bunch of epigraphs that had to be removed from the first edition. I'd like to do a discussion about why those epigraphs were selected, because I think looking at the stuff now again, I'm like, man, there was some really good. I had some good quotes in there. But then one of them, to the point I think you're making, Ricky, or how maybe I'm interpreting or misinterpreting your point, is that I would like to do more on a little bit that I've passingly been critical of, where Jessica Gordon Nembhard, Professor Halliday, and Dr. Amos Wilson had, well, particularly Halliday and Nembhard, had talked about market power and Black symbolic power, but not acknowledging the political power, and misreading, I think, again, just like Amos Wilson did, the Du Boisian moment of his acceptance of purchasing power in the 1930s and I think early 40s. So there is something in there that I feel like is similar. Yeah, I don't know what, but keep working with me on that, or hit me up with something at some point on that. Or if you write something on that, let me know and come share with us. But anyway, all right, good people. Let me leave it there for now. We'll keep plugging away on this. But I saw that, had a moment, wanted to share it again, as I'm in the middle of working on all of this at the moment anyway. It just came right on time. So thanks again to Radical, and to all of you out there who are here now live. Thanks for showing up, and those who will see and hear this later. We say the same thing, just like Fred Hampton used to say, peace, and only if you're willing to fight for it. Catch you next time.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.